You ever notice how the quietest rooms are the ones full of people? Not the silence of peace, the silence of distance. Two bodies sharing a couch, scrolling separate worlds, breathing the same air but living in different dimensions. That's not loneliness. Loneliness has a kind of purity to it. This is something else. This is the slow fade, the gradual replacement of presence with proximity. And here's what nobody tells you about relationships that die slowly. They don't die from the big explosions. They die from 1,000 small retreats. From conversations that used to run deep now staying shallow. From "how was your day" becoming a formality instead of an actual question. From touch that used to mean connection becoming just motion. We've built this entire cultural narrative around love as this grand, cinematic thing. The sweeping gestures, the dramatic reconciliations, the big romantic moments. But nobody's making movies about the Tuesday afternoon when someone stops really listening. Nobody's writing songs about the exact moment you realize you've become roommates who occasionally have sex. And that word, intimacy, we've mangled it beyond recognition. We've turned it into a synonym for something physical, something you can schedule, something that happens in bedrooms with the lights off. But intimacy isn't a location. It's not an activity. It's a state of being fully seen and choosing not to look away. Think about the last time someone really saw you. Not the version you present at work. Not the polished social media you. Not the competent, composed, got it all together mask. The actual you. The one who's scared sometimes. Who doubts. Who doesn't have all the answers. Who's trying to figure it out same as everyone else. When's the last time someone looked at that version of you and didn't immediately try to fix it, change it, improve it, or explain it away? Because here's the thing about human connection that we keep forgetting: we don't actually need solutions from each other. Not most of the time. What we need is witness. We need someone to sit in the hard stuff with us without immediately reaching for the rescue equipment. We need someone who can handle our uncertainty without making it about their own discomfort. There's this guy, let's call him David, mid-40s, successful by every external metric you'd use to measure a life. Good career, nice house, family that looks perfect in photos. And he's sitting across from me explaining why he can't get out of bed most mornings. Why the medications aren't really helping. Why everything feels like pushing water uphill. And the thing that keeps coming up isn't the job stress or the financial pressure or any of the obvious suspects. It's this one repeated phrase from his partner: just handle it. Just handle the crisis at work. Just handle the aging parents. Just handle the kids' problems. Just handle the renovation. Just handle your own mental health. Just handle everything, because handling things is what you do, right? That's the role. That's the expectation. That's what makes you valuable. And somewhere in all that handling, he stopped being a person and became a function. A utility. Something that either works or doesn't work. And when you're a utility, nobody asks how you're holding up. They just get frustrated when you malfunction. This is the trap we've built and then pretended doesn't exist. We've created this invisible contract where certain people are supposed to be the foundation, stable, unchanging, always solid, and we're genuinely shocked when foundations crack. When the person who's been holding everything together quietly falls apart. The research on this is actually fascinating and depressing in equal measure. Men who report feeling emotionally supported in their relationships show significantly lower rates of anxiety, depression, cardiovascular issues. Their overall life satisfaction goes up. Their sense of purpose increases. They engage more. They're more present. But here's the part that should bother us: most men report they don't have that support. They have partnerships, sure. They have people they live with, share finances with, raise children with. But emotional support? That safe space to be uncertain, to be scared, to not have the answer? That's rare enough to be remarkable when it exists. And we wonder why men die younger. Why they struggle to ask for help. Why they'd rather suffer in silence than admit they're drowning. It's because we've trained them, trained all of us, really, that vulnerability is weakness. That uncertainty is failure. That not knowing what to do is shameful. And then we're surprised when people hide their struggles until they explode. Let me give you a different frame for this. Imagine you're learning something new. Doesn't matter what. Could be a language, an instrument, a sport, a craft. You're a beginner. You're going to mess up. A lot. Now imagine two different teachers. First teacher watches you struggle, immediately steps in, shows you the right way, points out every mistake, sighs when you don't get it quickly enough, tells you to just let them do it because it's faster, makes you feel like you're wasting their time. Second teacher, gives you space to try, celebrates when you get something right, calmly corrects when you get something wrong, shows you the principle without taking over, trusts that you'll improve with practice, treats your effort as valuable even when the result isn't perfect yet. Which teacher are you learning from? Now ask yourself, which teacher are you being in your relationships? Because here's what I see constantly, and this isn't gendered, this happens in every direction. We say we want our partners to grow, to change, to step up, to be better. But then we criticize every attempt. We take over when they're moving too slow. We point out what's wrong before acknowledging what's right. We treat learning like it should be instant and flawless. There's this woman, call her Jennifer, who came to one of these talks completely exhausted. She's got young kids, demanding job, partner who doesn't pull his weight. And she's not wrong. Looking at the division of labor, it's wildly unbalanced. She's drowning. But as we dig into it, this pattern emerges. He tries to help with dinner, she redoes it because it's not how she'd do it. He attempts to organize something, she reorganizes it properly. He handles a kid's situation, she swoops in to fix what he did wrong. He gets a win at work, she immediately pivots to what they need to spend the money on rather than acknowledging the achievement. Every attempt he makes is met with correction, redirection, or appropriation. So he's stopped attempting. Why wouldn't he? The message is clear, you're not good enough at this, so don't bother trying. And here's the painful truth, she's not wrong about his initial attempts being suboptimal. He is learning. He didn't grow up doing these things. He doesn't have the same instincts or experience. His first try at cooking dinner was mediocre. His organization system was inefficient. His parenting instincts needed calibration. But you don't build competence through criticism. You build it through practice, feedback, and encouragement. You build it by treating someone like they're capable of growth rather than permanently incompetent. The same principle applies everywhere. You want your partner to be more emotionally available? You have to create safety for emotional expression. You want them to take on more responsibility? You have to let them do it imperfectly without swooping in. You want them to share what's really going on inside? You have to not weaponize that vulnerability the next time you're angry. Trust is built in moments. It's built when someone takes a risk and doesn't get punished for it. When they try something new and get encouraged rather than critiqued. When they share something difficult and receive compassion rather than solutions or judgment. And it's destroyed the same way. In moments. When they open up and get dismissed. When they try and get mocked. When they achieve something and it gets minimized. Here's a framework that's helped people I've worked with. The 5-to-1 ratio. For every piece of constructive criticism or correction you offer, you need 5 genuine acknowledgments of what's working. 5 moments of appreciation. 5 times you notice effort, progress, or positive intent. This isn't about being fake or over the top. It's about correcting our natural negativity bias. We're wired to notice what's wrong. It's a survival mechanism. The smoke alarm in your brain is designed to spot threats, not celebrate when nothing's on fire. But relationships don't survive on threat detection. They survive on recognition. On feeling seen for what you're contributing, not just criticized for what you're missing. And this goes deeper than just saying thank you more often, though that helps. This is about genuinely looking for what your partner is doing right. What they're good at. What they're trying to improve. What they've already improved. Because here's what happens when people feel chronically unappreciated, they stop trying. Not out of spite. Out of exhaustion. Why keep pouring energy into something that goes unnoticed? Why keep attempting growth in an environment that only points out failures? This shows up everywhere. The partner who stops planning dates because their ideas always got shot down. The person who stops sharing their day because their stories always get interrupted or one-upped. The one who stops trying to help because they're tired of being told they're doing it wrong. And then we look at the relationship and wonder why there's no spark anymore. Why everything feels transactional. Why intimacy, real intimacy, the kind where you're fully present with each other, has evaporated. It's because you can't be intimate with someone you're constantly defending yourself against. You can't be vulnerable with someone who's keeping score. You can't grow with someone who's invested in you staying exactly as you are so they can keep complaining about it. Let's talk about what actual support looks like, because I think we've confused it with cheerleading or problem solving. Support isn't blindly agreeing with everything someone does. It's not pretending problems don't exist. It's not lowering standards or accepting mediocrity. Support is creating the conditions for someone to solve their own problems. It's saying this looks hard instead of just do this. It's asking what do you need instead of telling them what they should do. It's sitting with discomfort instead of rushing to fix it. It's believing in someone's capacity to figure it out even when they're currently struggling. There's a guy, we'll call him Marcus, who lost his job in his industry's downturn. Not his fault, just timing and market forces. But he's spiraling, questioning everything, wondering if he's wasted his career, afraid he's become obsolete at 40. And his partner's response is just practical. Update your resume. Network more. Apply for this. Try that. Stop being negative. Just get another job. All technically correct advice. All completely missing what he needs, which isn't a job search strategy. It's permission to grieve what he's lost. It's space to question and rebuild his sense of identity. It's someone who can sit with his uncertainty without making it a referendum on his worth as a human being. Because we've built this equation, productivity equals value. Usefulness equals worthiness. And when you're not producing, not being useful in the traditional sense, what are you? This hits men particularly hard because of how we've constructed masculinity, but it hits everyone. We've all absorbed this idea that our value is conditional, that we have to earn our place, that love and respect are transactions, not states of being. And when you're operating from that framework, any setback becomes existential. Any failure becomes confirmation that you're worthless. Any struggle becomes evidence that you don't deserve support because you're not holding up your end of the bargain. This is why emotional support matters so much. Real support says your value isn't conditional on your productivity. Your worth isn't determined by your current circumstances. You're allowed to be uncertain, to struggle, to not have it figured out, and that doesn't make you less deserving of respect, patience, or partnership. But that kind of support requires something from both people. It requires the person struggling to actually share what's happening instead of performing competence. And it requires the partner to handle that sharing without making it about themselves, without immediately fixing, without treating vulnerability like a problem to be solved. Here's a practice that helps. The witness protocol. When someone shares something difficult, your job is to witness, not to rescue. That means, listen without interrupting. Don't jump in with your similar experience or your advice or your reassurance that it'll be fine. Just listen. Reflect what you're hearing. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by all of this. Not interpretation, not analysis, just reflection. Ask what they need. What would be helpful right now? Maybe they want advice. Maybe they want distraction. Maybe they just want you to sit there while they process. But ask instead of assuming. Trust their capacity. Even if you think you have the perfect solution, trust that they can figure this out. Your job is support, not rescue. There's a difference. This is hard. It goes against every instinct to fix, to solve, to make the discomfort go away. But sitting with someone in their struggle without trying to eliminate it, that's intimacy. That's the kind of connection that actually sustains relationships. Now let's address the elephant in every relationship, appreciation. We're all walking around semi-starved for genuine recognition. Not participation trophies. Not empty flattery. Genuine acknowledgement of effort, growth, contribution, character. And we're terrible at giving it to each other. We're excellent at noticing what's wrong, what's missing, what needs improvement. We're absolutely fluent in criticism, whether we deliver it gently or harshly. But recognition? Appreciation? Actually seeing what someone's doing right and naming it? We've somehow convinced ourselves that's optional, or that people should just know, or that acknowledging good things will make people complacent. Here's what actually happens when people feel appreciated: they do more of what you're appreciating. When they feel criticized, they do less of everything. This isn't complicated psychology. This is basic human motivation. We move toward what feels rewarding and away from what feels punishing. If trying gets you criticized and not trying gets you ignored, you'll stop trying. If effort gets acknowledged and improvement gets celebrated, you'll keep going. But somehow we've built relationships where we save our energy for pointing out problems and treat recognition like a scarce resource we can't afford to share. Think about your own life. When's the last time someone genuinely appreciated something about you? Not thanked you for a specific task, not complimented your appearance. Really appreciated who you are, how you show up, what you contribute, the effort you put in even when the results aren't perfect. How did that feel? How long did you remember it? How did it affect your interactions with that person afterward? Now flip it. When's the last time you did that for someone else? When's the last time you looked at your partner, your colleague, your friend, and actually named something specific you value about them? We're so afraid of being vulnerable in our appreciation. Like if we acknowledge someone's value, we're giving away power. Like if we celebrate their wins, there's less success to go around. Like if we recognize their growth, They might grow right past us. But relationships aren't zero-sum games. Your partner's success doesn't diminish yours. Their growth doesn't threaten yours. Their value doesn't reduce yours. And when you create an environment of genuine appreciation, where effort gets recognized, where growth gets celebrated, where people feel seen for their positive contributions, you get more of all of it. More effort, more growth, more contribution. Here's the practice. The daily notice. Every day, find one thing your partner did, tried, or demonstrated that you genuinely appreciate. It doesn't have to be big. It can be how they handled a difficult conversation, how they showed up for the kids, how they persisted with something challenging, how they were kind to someone, how they made you laugh. Name it specifically. Not "you're great," but "I noticed how patient you were with that situation today." That takes real strength. Do this consistently, not as manipulation, not as strategy, as practice in actually seeing the person you're with instead of the idealized version you wish they were or the flawed version you're focused on fixing. Watch what happens. Not overnight, but over time. Watch how the relationship shifts when appreciation becomes the baseline instead of the exception. This isn't about lowering standards or accepting behavior that's genuinely harmful. It's about recognizing that criticism without appreciation creates defensiveness, not growth. That people can't hear constructive feedback if they don't first feel valued. You know what kills relationships faster than conflict? Contempt. That subtle shift from "you did something wrong" to "there's something wrong with you." From "this specific behavior is a problem" to "you are the problem." And contempt grows in environments where criticism outweighs appreciation, where mistakes get amplified and efforts get minimized, where people feel like they're constantly falling short of an unstated standard they can never quite reach. The antidote isn't pretending problems don't exist. It's building enough trust and goodwill that problems can be addressed without threatening the foundation of the relationship. It's creating enough safety that feedback can be received as helpful instead of heard as attack. Here's something that might make you uncomfortable. Most relationship advice focuses on what you should get from your partner, what you deserve, what your needs are, how they should change to meet those needs. And none of that is wrong. Exactly. Your needs matter. You do deserve respect, support, intimacy, appreciation. But relationships don't actually work when both people are primarily focused on what they're getting. They work when both people are focused on what they're contributing. Not as martyrdom, not as self-sacrifice, as investment. Because here's the thing about relationships that actually thrive. They're built by people who are more interested in being the right partner than finding the right partner. Who spend more energy on their own growth than on their partner's flaws. Who take responsibility for creating the dynamic they want instead of waiting for the other person to change first. This doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It doesn't mean staying in situations that are genuinely harmful. It means recognizing that you have agency in how relationships unfold. That the way you show up shapes what you get back. If you want emotional support, practice giving it. If you want appreciation, practice offering it. If you want intimacy, practice creating safety for vulnerability. If you want your partner to grow, practice creating space for imperfect attempts. Not as transaction, as model, as invitation, as the kind of relationship you're building through your own behavior. Let me tell you what I've observed in relationships that work. Not perfect relationships, those don't exist. But relationships where people are genuinely connected, growing together, handling life's difficulties without falling apart. They figured out this balance between acceptance and growth. They see each other clearly, flaws and all, and choose to appreciate what's there while supporting evolution toward something better. They don't demand perfection, but they also don't settle for stagnation. They've created safety for honesty. Not the brutal "I'm just being honest" honesty that's really criticism in disguise. The kind of honesty where you can say "I'm struggling" or "I don't know" or "I'm scared" without worrying that vulnerability will be used against you later. They've learned that intimacy isn't about constant intensity. It's about consistent presence. It's about showing up on the boring Tuesdays and the exhausting Thursdays, not just the exciting weekends. It's about choosing to stay engaged even when it would be easier to check out. They've realized that respect isn't automatic just because you're in a relationship. It's built through countless small moments of treating each other like you actually like them, like their thoughts matter, like their feelings are valid even when you don't fully understand them, like their efforts deserve recognition even when the results aren't perfect. And maybe most importantly, they've stopped keeping score. They've stopped tracking who did more, who sacrificed more, who's trying harder. Not because everything's perfectly equal, it never is, but because they've chosen to trust that over the long arc of a relationship, things balance out if both people are operating from generosity rather than scarcity. This is the shift that changes everything, moving from what am I getting to what am I creating. When you wake up focused on whether your partner is meeting your needs, you're going to find evidence of how they are falling short. When you wake up focused on what kind of relationship you're building through your own actions, you start creating the dynamic you want. And here's the thing nobody tells you, most people will rise to the environment you create. Not all people. Not toxic people. Not people who are fundamentally unwilling to do their own work. But most people, when they're in an environment of genuine appreciation, support, and safety, they become more appreciative, supportive, and safe. When they're in an environment of constant criticism, judgment, and contempt, they become defensive, withdrawn, and resentful. You're not responsible for other people's choices, but you are responsible for the environment you're creating and contributing to. So here's your challenge, and this is practical, not theoretical. For the next week, practice the 5-to-1 ratio. 5 genuine acknowledgments for every critique. Notice what changes in how your partner responds to you. Practice the witness protocol. When someone shares something difficult, just witness it. Don't fix, don't minimize, don't redirect. See what happens when you just hold space. Practice the daily notice. Every day, name one specific thing you appreciate about your partner. Watch how it shifts the baseline of your relationship. And practice asking yourself, what am I creating here? Not what am I getting? What am I building through my own behavior, my own choices, my own way of showing up? Because here's the truth that makes all of this matter, we don't get the relationships we want. We get the relationships we create. Through how we listen, how we appreciate, how we support, how we show up in the hard moments and the boring ones. You want intimacy? Create safety for vulnerability. You want support? Model what support looks like. You want appreciation? Practice genuine recognition. You want growth? Make space for imperfect attempts. Not as manipulation, as leadership, as taking responsibility for your half of every dynamic you're part of. This isn't easy. It requires putting aside your own reactivity to be present for someone else's struggle. It requires celebrating their wins even when you're dealing with your own disappointments. It requires seeing their humanity even when they're getting on your nerves. But this is what builds relationships that last. Not perfection, not absence of conflict, not some fairy tale where everything's easy. What builds lasting relationships is two people who decided that creating connection matters more than being right. That supporting growth matters more than avoiding discomfort. That showing up with generosity matters more than keeping score. And that starts with you. Today, with the very next interaction you have. So the question isn't what do you want from your relationships? The question is, what are you building?